Did you know that there is a new band of frequencies available for use for FPV video? It's called the low band or the low race band, and it's got way more channels that you can use. Get lots more pilots in the air with less interference. Did you know that it's almost certainly illegal for you to use this band? Stay tuned. FPV pilots are always looking for ways to get more pilots in the air with less interference. It's really annoying when somebody stomps on your channel, and it's also really annoying when there's 15 people at the field and only 4 or 5 or maybe 6 of them can be in the air at the same time, because there's only so many channels for us to use. And that's why it's super exciting when you see something like this. Now, I don't mean to pick on this video transmitter specifically. It's just the first one that showed up when I searched for a transmitter that supported this new feature. This is the Eachine VTX03. It costs $14 and it is a 72 channel video transmitter. 72. Where'd those extra channels come from? Well, it turns out that they get those extra channels by using frequencies that we normally don't use. So normally video transmitters, FPV video transmitters, operate in something called the ISM band. The ISM band, but first of all, the ISM band itself is US only. There are similar bands defined in other countries. They're not necessarily defined exactly the same, but we'll talk about the US here because that's the one I operate in and the one I know the best. The ISM band extends from 5725 to 5825 megahertz. And basically, you're allowed, it's sort of like a Wild West free range where you can do things that you're not normally allowed to do. It's a playground. And that's why we can operate our video transmitters in this band without getting an FCC license, for example. So if we look at this channel chart, we can see that the traditional bands generally stay within the ISM band. So we can see Fat Shark frequencies go from 5740 to 5860, which is within the ISM band. And the same for 5865 to 5745 for band A, and so on and so on. The first place we really see some encroachment outside of the ISM band is race band. Race band goes all the way down to 5658. It doesn't take a math major to tell you that 5658 is less than 5725. And in fact, it goes up to 5880, which is more than 5825. The rationale behind this, I guess, is that there are some countries where this is legal, and so, if you're within the United States, for example, you're not supposed to be using those frequencies. You're not supposed to be using race band 1 or race band 7. They're not legally used because they're outside the ISM band. The low band, though, is something completely different. It goes all the way down into 5300 megahertz. And if we look, here's some other bands that are supported here. The O band, I don't know what that is, goes down to 5474. The U band is down in the 5300s. All of these bands are in an area that is used for weather radar, used for astronavigation. There are active users of these bands, and it's a big deal if you interfere with them. I work in Wi-Fi professionally, and Wi-Fi wanted to operate in the same block of frequencies around about 5300 to 5400 megahertz. And that is technically part of the unibands now. But for Wi-Fi to operate there, they had to implement a protocol where if they detected weather radar or one of these other authorized users of the band, the access point would stop talking and move to a different frequency. It would sense and avoid, if you will. They call it dynamic frequency selection, or DFS. And obviously our analog transmitters aren't going to do that. They're just going to keep blasting away. Now, some people say, oh, come on, Grandpa, first you hated building dives, and then you hated tiny whoops smashing into women's butts. If you missed that, don't worry about it. Well, now you're whining about people using unlicensed frequencies. And some of you guys don't care. Some of you guys are buying this transmitter right now and don't care about this. Fine, there's nothing I can do about that. But this is a big deal. Like, if you say, we don't even have ham licenses, half of us, and nobody, we're already breaking the law. The thing is, if you don't have a ham license, but you're using a TBS Unify or something, you're using your video transmitter, you're still fundamentally complying with the law. You just don't have a certificate. You're still not doing anything that's causing any harm to anybody. You just haven't jumped through this paperwork hoop. Okay, fine. You're not hurting anybody. When you transmit in around 5300, 5400 megahertz with your video transmitter, you are potentially interfering with an active user of the band. Do you think somebody who's looking at a weather radar is going to notice that you were there? I mean, if the weather radar is going to pick up your transmission. Okay, I'm flying 25 milliwatts and I'm flying below the tree line. Okay, the weather radar probably isn't going to pick you up. I'm not saying that you couldn't stack the deck to try to get away with it. What I am saying is that many of the things that we do that are, I say we, I'm just for the record, I have my ham license. I'm legal. Okay. Many of the things that you guys do that are technically illegal, that aren't hurting anybody, and we sort of look the other way and nobody notices and nobody cares. This does not fall into that category. This is potentially a big deal. Wi-Fi is a pretty big player, and they had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get to use these frequencies. It's actually really irresponsible of vendors like Eachine to sell this stuff into the United States when there is no legal way for you to be using this. And it is more likely than you might think to have somebody notice and bring down some kind of a hammer. You personally are never going to get caught. And I say that because by the time somebody notices that you're transmitting and you're screwing up their weather radar or their astronavigation or who the heck knows what you're doing, you're going to be gone. So you have to just be responsible. The hammer will come down on all of us if this becomes an issue. Now, I said there's no legal way to do this, and that's not actually true. I talked to some guys from Immersion RC in preparation for making this video, and they've used low band at races. And what they've done is they have coordinated with the FCC, or in one case, he said they worked with the French military, and they declared the area a military exercise so the military had control over the frequency coordination. The point is that if you're a race organizer, you may have jumped through the necessary hoops to get to legally use the low band at your race. So just because you see somebody like some big national level or maybe global level race using low band, don't go, well, they do it, so clearly it's fine. They've jumped through hoops. You haven't. Well, okay, that's enough of grandpa whining about kids these days. I feel so silly doing this because I'm not just an FPV pilot. I'm also an RF professional. I do this for my day job, and I care about this stuff. RF, if you don't know what the tragedy of the commons is, go look up the tragedy of the commons. The gist of it is that one person does something that is sort of like, I could get away with it, and then everybody does it, and the whole freaking thing is ruined. And RF is ripe for the tragedy of the commons to occur. RF only is useful if we all abide by the rules. If somebody is transmitting and interfering on a frequency, they just blast everybody within range and ruin it. And transmitting on these bands where we're not authorized to be, that's a much bigger deal than, I don't have a ham license, but technically I'm still doing everything right. It's a much bigger deal. I encourage you, don't use frequencies outside the ISM band, and especially don't use the low band or any of these other O band, U band, all the stuff down below, 50, 600 maybe at a minimum. All that stuff, stay out of that because there's authorized users there. And if you interfere with one of them, it is potentially a big deal. Okay, that's me telling you kids to get off my lawn. Hopefully some of you take this seriously and others of you are going to go dive a building and tell me to shut up. Oh well, what can you do? Happy flying. Happy building diving. You go, kids. Go dive a building on low band in front of a weather radar station while wearing a hoodie. I don't know. Good night.